when we fall
Right.
off the track that we're supposed to be on, or we think we're supposed to be on, what
Right.
is the reaction to make the first time the last time, which is I'm stealing that from you because you said that one. You make you that mistake, that mistake, make the first time be the last time to teach your child.
That's smart.
Yeah. Anyway, when we all fall off track, right?
Right.
You have a conversation. It's up to you to have a conversation with yourself to say, okay, am I on my way to becoming this person that I can be? Like, where are my value? What's my set of values? What are my morals? And what do I care about in this world? Like, what's my purpose? What am I doing here?
Right.
And who am I here to help? Because it's not just obviously all about us. So,
Right.
and when you do fall off the track, you have a responsibility to think like, okay, how do I get back on the right track? Or
Right.
was I supposed to fall off this track and accept this turn of events that I wasn't prepared for? Like, you have to be able to really reflect. And reflection, I think, is something that I really didn't have any language around or any experience around until I went to therapy with Dan Siegel. I didn't reflect. I didn't think about, oh, maybe how did I come across in that situation? Or well, maybe I was offensive, or I reflecting on my life. Like, there was no reflection. And without reflection, yeah,
Mm,
like there's a lack of growth. So as soon
right.
as you are given the gift of self-awareness, as soon as you are able to reflect, then you can understand that sometimes when things don't work out the way that you want them to, you first of all, always you're going to be okay.
Right.
Like, you're going to be okay. And people say that and it sounds hollow when you're the one going through it, but it's the truest thing that you can say, is because we survive all of these things, we are going to be okay. So in the times when we don't feel okay, to be able to go, you don't feel okay now, but you're going to be okay, and you're going to have that confidence and that the self-assuredness that you're lacking today, it's coming back around. It might be a day, it might be 4 days, but it's going to circle back because everything is so impermanent. And to really appreciate that about life, to appreciate the bad stuff, is so
Right.
hard to do until you realize how beneficial it is to be grateful for the bad stuff too.
What I love about this book is you write about how abrasive you were, how much energy you had when you walked in the room, how you hurt people's feelings, and then you tell a great story about Jane Fonda calling you out, and then you making a decision at that moment to become a different kind of person, to hear that kind of honesty and shift. So for people who are in their life and not being the person that they want to be, who have feel like they've fallen off the road, how do you take that kind of constructive criticism, as my mother used to call it, and write it and use it to right your own ship, to use it to right your life, to put you back on path?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's so important, and I know you know this, we've spoken about this. It's never too late to get your shit together. It is
Amen.
it is never too late. You could be a hot mess and you can wake up the next day and be like, okay, and we're going to take one step today to get me out of this hot messness. Like, we're going to take one big step and then tomorrow we'll take another one. So that's the first thing that everyone needs to know. You are never unrecoverable. And the second thing is, when you are motivated to be the best version of yourself in terms of your graciousness, your generosity, and I don't just mean materialistically, I mean generosity of spirit. What are you
Right.
willing to give, for others, and what are you willing to sacrifice to be there for others? Like, how much are you willing to give to be a sister? That's the theme of the book, sisterhood.
Yes.
And in terms of all of us women, it feels like we're at the point in our lives where, or in our lifetime, for me, where women are finally understanding how important it is for us to be together. Like, especially in the backdrop of what's happening in our country right now, women
Mhm.
are the reason why we're sitting here is because people are so threatened by the power of women. So
Right.
I think a good reminder for everyone, or every woman who's fallen off the track or doesn't feel like she's gelling or in her flow state, is you're the one who's going to get you back there. And every day is a decision to
Mm.
take a step in that direction. And you have the whole, like, you have to think of every woman when you do something like that. Like, when I'm at my lowest and I don't have it in me, I'm like, okay, think of all the women you're lifting up just by lifting yourself up.
But how do you kind of, is there any point in here? Because so many people will say, like, well, she's never been as low as me, or she never have had to go through the heartbreak I've gone through, or she doesn't know how bad it is and how hard it will be for me to pick myself up. And you actually do. So I want you to talk a little bit about kind of for people who are out there, and there are millions, especially now with people conversations. I mean, people feel like they cannot pick themselves up. They cannot get out of the noise. They're terrified about all kinds of things, right? Talk about a really low point in your life in here where you picked yourself back up and you even though you were terrified, you kept moving towards the woman you wanted to be.
Well, I think a good example would be, which is in the book, was when Joe Coy and I broke up because it was such a public facing relationship and no one had ever really seen me be that happy or be that in love. And the reception to that was very intoxicating. Like, I loved that people were rooting for us in such a public way. I had never been in a relationship like that before.
Mhm.
And I was really in love with Joe Coy. I didn't expect for that to happen. It was an old friend. And I was really in love with him when we broke up. And so I didn't want to break up with him, but I felt that I had to break up with him in order to respect myself. And again, whenever I make those decisions, I am thinking about all women. I'm not just thinking about my situation. I'm thinking about, if I'm such a warrior for women, then I always have to make the decision that's in the best interest of all women. And while that may sound, inflated, and like, that's really how I feel. I feel like, okay, what kind of example I'm setting, if am I setting? And I of course have to be true to myself. But that was an instance in which I didn't want to have to break up with him. I did it. It was very public. I handled it with grace and dignity. I didn't ever spill the tea about what exactly went down. I didn't
Mhm.
throw anyone under a bus. I respected the fact that we were in a relationship and that I was sensitive to his feelings and that I wasn't going to talk about it publicly and embarrass him any further. And that was and I was really low while I was making all of these very powerful decisions. Like, I went on
Mm.
Glennon and Abby Wambach's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, and like 2 days after we broke up, because I didn't want to reschedule again. And we had this really powerful conversation about breaking up. And it was gut wrenching for me. But through all of that, I was choosing the higher path. Do you know what I mean? Like, not in a
Exactly.
religious sense so much as a spiritual one.
Mm.
Like, I was like, that's okay. You're going to lift yourself out of here by continually doing the right thing. Be respectful, be gracious, be open, be honest. And it doesn't matter if you cry in front of people. It's okay. Just be real, be real about it. You don't have to
Yeah.
throw anyone under the bus to be real about stuff. So that was an experience for me where I felt so hopeless. I really thought Joe and I were going to be together. Like, I thought I was done with guys. So to find out that that wasn't going to be true, and that also he had lifted me up so much, I thought, whoa, 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 am I still going to be at this spot without him the way that he made me feel? And I just remember saying to myself, is like, of course you are. You're not here because of him. This is a part of your life. This isn't your entire life. This is a story, not the story.
So
Um,
how do you kind of heartbreak is so hard for people to get over, starting in our teenage years, maybe starting as children, right? You might have a heartbreak with your parents, you might have a first love heartbreak, and then it kind of just continues. And then you have these massive heartbreaks. How do you think you heal from heartbreak? You talk about this in the book, but I think it's really good to talk about.
Yeah, I think you have to give out, like, double down on your love. You got to give out love. You got to give out to other people. I think that is the best way to heal, is to help other people. I,
Yeah.
I, and I also, sitting in the grief, that is so hard. So many people can't even sit by themselves without being in grief.
Yeah.
So many people can't be alone, and sitting through your grief, like actually sitting there, not turning on the TV, not calling a girlfriend, not distracting yourself with food or drugs or alcohol, and just going, I want to move through this and I want this to get through me as quickly as possible while being
Mm.
present. Like, that's a beautiful spiritual thing to do as well, and it works. Like when you're not distracting yourself from pain, it will move through you in a quicker way. And I have experienced that now multiple times.